I'm Vivian. I'm 35, a single mom, and for the last year I've been trying to rebuild a life that shattered beneath my feet like broken piano keys. The day I'm talking about started with nervous sheet music shuffling and homemade cookies and ended with a moment that cut through my heart like a perfect final note. The kind of moment that straightens your spine with quiet resolve and makes you realize your dignified silence can resonate more powerfully than someone else's cruel words. My son Ethan had been counting down to his first piano recital for weeks, his fingers constantly tapping imaginary keys on tabletops. He's quiet, thoughtful, and loves losing himself in music, his small face intense with concentration when he plays. The two of us had been planning his performance celebration together, just close family, a few of his friends from school. Some music-themed decorations, and cookies he insisted we decorate with blue icing music notes that smudge between our laughing fingers. It was supposed to be simple, intimate, our kind of celebration that felt like a warm melody in our still healing hearts. But then my ex-husband Marcus said he was coming, and he wasn't coming alone, his voice striking a discordant note in our careful plans. He told me 2 days before, like he was bestowing a gift, Natasha wants to meet Ethan's family. I think it's time. Just like that. No gentle prelude, no asking if I was ready for this complicated duet. I swallowed hard and nodded even though everything inside me screamed no, the cry echoing through my hollow chest. Marcus left me after 12 years of marriage, the finale to our relationship as abrupt as a slammed piano lid. One day we were planning a family vacation, the next he was moving into a luxury apartment downtown, leaving silence where his voice used to be. A few months later he posted pictures online with Natasha, her perfectly manicured hand possessively on his chest, diamond ring flashing like a spotlight that blinded me each time I scrolled past. So yeah, I knew this dissonant chord would sound eventually. I just didn't think it would be during Ethan's first symphony. When they walked in, I felt the energy crack and splinter like a dissonant chord. Ethan ran over to hug his dad, his small shoulders tense with excited nervousness. Natasha followed a few steps behind, her designer heels clicking on the polished auditorium floor like metronomes counting down to an inevitable confrontation. She wore a tight white dress so pristine it seemed to reject the very concept of wrinkles. Her makeup looked professionally applied, her face a perfect mask that revealed nothing but calculated beauty. She handed Ethan a gift bag emblazoned with the logo of an exclusive electronics store, smiled with practiced precision and said, "Happy recital day, sweetie. I hope you like it." Marcus picked it out, but I upgraded it. I forced a polite smile that felt like stretching brittle piano wire. "Thank you for coming." Natasha looked around the modest school auditorium, perfectly shaped eyebrows arched like she was assessing property below her standards. She said, "It's quaint, very educational." I pretended her words were just background noise, focusing instead on my son's upcoming performance. Ethan was already moving toward the reception area where refreshments waited. About an hour later, after Ethan's breathtaking performance had concluded and guests mingled at the small reception, I began arranging some fallen sheet music. That's when it happened. Natasha turned to Marcus, her smile dripping with false helpfulness, and pointed to my son who was still flushed with the achievement of his performance. "You know," she said, loud enough for nearby parents and teachers to hear. "With proper lessons, he could actually be quite good. It's a shame he can't access real training on a music teacher's salary, right?" Marcus froze, his champagne flute suspended midway to his lips. Several guests turned to look, their expressions a mixture of shock and embarrassment. I looked at Ethan. He had just heard his future stepmother diminish both his talent and my ability to support it in one cutting sentence. His face flushed crimson. He looked straight at me, his eyes searching mine like he was waiting for me to defend our life together. I kept arranging the music sheets, my hands trembling slightly, but I didn't say a word, because I had something far more powerful than a verbal counterattack. I had one last surprise for Ethan, and Natasha had no idea what symphony was about to play. I've never been one for extravagant showcases. That was always Marcus's specialty. He loved the attention, the performance aspect, but I've always believed that the most meaningful celebrations resonate from the heart, not from the wallet. So for Ethan's first major recital, I did what I've always done. I made it authentically ours. I started baking music note cookies 2 days before, the buttery kind with swirls of blue icing he loves to trace with his fingertips before taking a bite. My mom Isabel helped hang delicate paper lanterns across the reception area of the school's modest music hall. She even brought the folding table from her attic, the one we've used for every family celebration since I played my first piano recital. It wobbles slightly in the center, but I draped a music-themed tablecloth over it, and Ethan thought it looked perfect. He chose the decorations himself, blue and silver music notes, a small display of his composition notebooks, and a framed photo of him at his first piano lesson. We didn't have much to spend on extravagance, but that didn't matter to him. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. For him, this performance was monumental. He'd invited his closest friends from school, his piano practice group, and of course my mom. Even my brother Gabriel promised to attend despite his busy schedule at the fire station. It was going to be intimate but overflowing with genuine support. I could feel it in the air that morning, Ethan's nervous excitement, that pure, unfiltered anticipation that vibrates through a child before their moment to shine. He appeared in my doorway clutching a carefully wrapped package in his slender fingers. He said, "You can't open it until after the recital. It's something special." I hugged him close, feeling his heartbeat flutter against mine. "You're the one performing today. I should be the one giving you special gifts." His voice soft against my shoulder, "I already have mine. You believe in my music." That's the kind of kid Ethan is, compassionate, thoughtful, and carrying wisdom beyond his years. Since Marcus left, he's been my emotional lighthouse in ways that make my heart both swell and ache. He perceives everything. He senses when sadness crawls into my bones, even when I force smiles across my face. He tries to be my strength when I falter. Sometimes I wish his childhood could be lighter. The divorce crashed through his world harder than I allowed myself to acknowledge at the time. One day his dad was there helping him practice piano scales, telling bedtime stories with different voices. The next, he was inhabiting a modern luxury apartment downtown, sending quick texts instead of showing up, posting photos with Natasha as if our family symphony had never played a single note. I tried to maintain composure for Ethan, for my own fractured self. I channeled my energy into structured rhythms, school drop-offs, piano lessons, grading student compositions, budgeting limited funds, and simply breathing. I couldn't afford the luxury of falling apart when my son needed stability. But when Marcus called announcing he was bringing Natasha to the recital, it felt like a discordant note shattering a perfect melody. "She wants to be part of Ethan's musical journey," he said, as if that simple explanation could smooth the jagged edges of this intrusion. I didn't debate. I just said fine, and disconnected before my voice betrayed the tremor building in my throat. That morning, as I arranged music programs and smoothed the reception tablecloth, my mom watched me with knowing eyes. "You holding up okay, honey?" she asked, handing me a tray of music note cookies. "I'm perfectly fine," I said, arranging them in perfect harmony. "Today belongs to Ethan, not my feelings." She gave me that penetrating maternal gaze that sees through carefully constructed facades but respects the need for them. If she says something cutting, I might accidentally spill punch on that white dress. I smiled tightly. She replied, "No accidents today. Promise me." When Marcus finally arrived with Natasha gliding at his side, I was adjusting Ethan's bow tie backstage. I looked up and saw them walking down the auditorium aisle together, fingers intertwined like practiced dancers. He wore an expensive suit that screamed business meeting rather than child's piano recital. She wore pristine white, a visual statement that seemed to demand attention in the modestly decorated hall. Ethan spotted them and his fingers paused mid-scale. "Dad," he called out. He embraced Marcus quickly, then looked at Natasha and offered a polite nod. "Hello." She bent down, careful not to wrinkle her dress, and kissed his cheek. "You've grown so much. 10 years old and already performing. I brought something special you'll absolutely adore." I remained silent, standing by the piano with sheet music still clutched in my trembling fingers. "Hey," Marcus said with awkward formality. "Thanks for including us today." I nodded, swallowing the bitterness rising in my throat. "Of course. This is Ethan's moment." But as I turned back to organize the music sheets, I felt Natasha's calculating eyes survey the modest auditorium, a slight curve to her lips suggesting she found our world quaint and insufficient. I drew a steadying breath, arranged the final sheet of music, and announced quietly, "Everyone should take their seats." The performance is about to begin. Ethan stood before the gleaming school piano, his posture perfect and eyes bright. He couldn't possibly know this was the moment when everything would realign. Neither could I, but something deep within warned me this wouldn't be just another recital. They say a mother's intuition rarely misleads. I felt the atmosphere shift the moment she claimed her front row seat. Natasha examined the school auditorium like a property assessor at a foreclosure. Her expression remained neutral, but her body language screamed, "This entire setting is beneath my standards." She positioned her expensive gift bag beside the modest program booklets on the reception table and deliberately announced, "It's from both of us." Marcus selected it, but I made sure it was the premium version. Her smile radiated expectation of gratitude and recognition. I remained composed. There were school families everywhere. My mom was arranging refreshments for after the performance. I refused to disrupt Ethan's special day. I simply nodded and mentioned the reception would follow the recital. Marcus, characteristically, contributed little to the conversation. He lingered near the program table, engaging my brother Gabriel in superficial talk about local sports, while his eyes darted in my direction when he thought I wouldn't notice. Perhaps he recognized Natasha's inappropriate behavior. Perhaps he simply didn't care enough to address it. The issue wasn't Natasha's presence. It was her demeanor, as if she were the headliner and this was her performance space rather than my son's milestone. She sat with her arm possessively wrapped around Marcus's, her laughter too loud for the setting, making remarks calibrated to wound while disguised as innocent observations. At one point she approached my mom and remarked, "Oh Isabel, these arrangements are charming. I see where Vivian gets her modest but effective presentation skills." Mom offered a tight-lipped smile and murmured to me in Spanish, "That woman has no shame." I attempted to dismiss it with forced lightheartedness. I wanted Ethan's performance to remain unshadowed. That singular goal consumed me. But then arrived the moment, the one that twisted my insides and caused every conversation in the reception area to abruptly cease. I was gathering sheet music after Ethan's applause-filled performance. There were program pages scattered on chairs, punch glasses balanced precariously on the edge of the refreshment table, congratulatory notes from his music teacher resting on the piano. I reached for Ethan's composition notebook lying open on a nearby stand. Before I could retrieve it, Natasha stepped forward, examined it with feigned interest, and turned to Marcus. "You know," she said loudly, her voice cutting through the after-recital conversations. "With proper training at Westridge Academy, Ethan could actually develop real talent. It's a shame he can't access quality instruction on a music teacher's salary, right?" She smiled, not a genuine expression of warmth, but a calculated display of superiority that sliced through the room like a knife across piano strings. Marcus froze, champagne flute suspended halfway to his lips. I stood there clutching a program in my suddenly trembling hand, my face burning with humiliation that crawled up my neck. I looked at Ethan. He was standing by the piano with his certificate of achievement still clutched in his fingers. He'd heard every syllable, each perfectly articulated word, and his face reflected a complex mix of emotions. Embarrassment tinged with confusion and hurt, as though someone had just reduced his triumphant moment to a reminder of what he lacked. He didn't look at her. He looked directly at me, his eyes searching mine for guidance. Would I crumble under her cruelty? Would I match her venom with my own? Would I create a scene? I did none of these things. I just smiled, my lips pressed together in dignified silence. I took the composition book from her manicured hands and said, "Thank you for your concern. We're doing just fine." She blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. Perhaps she'd anticipated tears or anger. Perhaps even a public confrontation. She received neither. I turned and carefully placed the notebook in Ethan's music folder. My mom appeared at my side and gently took the folder from me. "Go enjoy the moment," she whispered. "You've earned this." I joined the small circle of congratulating parents, my heart hammering against my ribs. I wasn't wounded by her calculated words, not fundamentally. I was devastated by their effect on Ethan. Throughout the reception, he kept glancing my way, subdued, less radiant than after his performance, the pride in his eyes dimmed by her casual cruelty. That's when I remembered the special gift I'd reserved until this moment. The handcrafted wooden music box Ethan and I had created together during rainy weekend afternoons. We painted it blue with musical notes and filled it with treasures that carried our shared history, his first composition, a photo from his first piano lesson, and the ticket stub from our first symphony visit. I'd planned to present it to him in our private celebration at home, an intimate moment just between us. But circumstances demanded a change of plans. Natasha had transformed his musical achievement into an opportunity for dominance. She flaunted expensive gifts, delivered subtle insults, attempted to overshadow his accomplishment. But she fundamentally misunderstood one crucial truth: this wasn't a competition I needed to enter. I possessed something she could never purchase, and when Ethan opened that box, everyone present would witness exactly what that was. After her cutting remark about his training, I couldn't help watching Ethan's reactions. He was noticeably withdrawn, staying near his piano teacher rather than celebrating with friends. Every few moments, his eyes would find mine across the room, as if he were checking whether I remained whole, as if he wanted to somehow erase words that weren't his responsibility. That realization shattered something inside me, not Natasha's cruel assessment, not Marcus's cowardly silence, but witnessing my son diminish himself in response. The kind of invisible wound that leaves no physical trace but alters how a child sees himself. I stood by the reception table arranging congratulatory cards and thinking, this was meant to be his moment of musical triumph. For a brief instant, I questioned my response: should I have confronted her? Should I have highlighted her rudeness? Defended our choices? Created a memorable scene? But clarity arrived immediately: absolutely not. That approach contradicts everything I believe and, more critically, conflicts with the values I'm trying to instill in my son. I don't want him learning that strength means matching cruelty with cruelty or that power comes from public humiliation. I want him to understand that true strength flows from knowing your intrinsic worth without requiring external validation. That's when inspiration struck with perfect clarity. I slipped away to the small practice room where we'd stored our personal items, opened my tote bag, and removed the carefully wrapped package I'd saved especially for Ethan. It was a handcrafted music box, deep blue with golden staff lines flowing across its surface. We had designed it together during weekend sessions at the Community Arts Center weeks earlier. We'd carefully painted musical notation across the lid, his name spelled out in golden quarter notes. Inside rested items insignificant to outsiders but infinitely precious to us: his first complete composition, a Polaroid from the day he first touched piano keys. The pressed flower from the bouquet I received after my first school concert as music teacher, and nestled beneath everything, a handwritten letter he'd composed spontaneously one evening while supposed to be practicing scales. I hadn't yet read his words. He insisted it was for this specific occasion. I stood motionless for several heartbeats, cradling the box, tracing the golden notes with my fingertip, feeling its emotional weight that transcended its physical presence. Because I recognized this as the pivotal moment. The moment Natasha could never intrude upon with her credit card. The moment Marcus couldn't comprehend with his surface-level understanding of our bond. The moment no designer label or electronic gadget could possibly eclipse. I returned to the reception area holding the box close against my heart. The guests were enjoying cookies and fruit punch. Fellow teachers offered congratulations. Natasha was delicately sipping mineral water, her expression suggesting mild boredom at enduring such a pedestrian event. Ethan noticed my return and his face brightened, that genuine, unguarded smile that appears when he senses something meaningful approaching. "Ethan, sweetheart," I called softly. "I have something special for you." He approached with curious anticipation. I noticed conversations quieting as attention shifted to our interaction. I presented him the box and whispered, "Open this whenever you feel ready." He settled cross-legged beside the piano and began unwrapping with deliberate care, no tearing, no rushing, unlike his approach to the expensive tablet and headphones from earlier gifts. He handled it reverently because he instinctively understood its significance. People naturally gravitated closer. Natasha observed from her isolated position, legs elegantly crossed, smile fixed and brittle. She maintained her facade of sophisticated detachment, but I detected tension radiating through her perfect posture. Marcus appeared perplexed, as though witnessing a tradition entirely foreign to his understanding of our relationship. Ethan opened the lid and his eyes lit up when he saw his first composition. "I thought this was lost," he said, fingers tracing the notes. He turned the family photo in his hand, from before everything unraveled. He looked up at me. May I read what I wrote for you? I nodded, heart fluttering. If you'd like to. He unfolded the paper carefully, smoothing it across his lap. He wasn't nervous. He was centered, as if this moment had always been his to claim. He said, I wrote this after my first recital piece. I've kept it private until today. My heart raced with anticipation, but I smiled encouragingly. Go ahead, sweetheart. He looked at the paper and began, Dear Mom, thank you for believing in my music even when I hit wrong notes, even when I wanted to quit. You create a safe space for me. You help me practice even after teaching all day. You attend every recital regardless of weather. I notice your hidden sadness sometimes. I see it. But you still smile for me. You still hum melodies while grading papers. You still sway when Chopin plays on the radio. You make even the hard days beautiful. I don't need fancy lessons or a new family. I just need you. You're my teacher, my biggest fan, my true home. This performance is my gift to you. Love, Ethan. As he finished, my mom quietly dabbed her eyes. Gabriel stood tall, arms crossed, jaw set firmly. Several music teachers and parents looked away respectfully. Ethan rose and faced me. I was totally speechless. I simply opened my arms, and he walked into my embrace. He pressed against my heart and whispered, I meant every note. I know, I said. I treasure each one. A moment of perfect stillness, then the sound of a chair scraping back. Natasha stood. She remained silent, her complexion ashen. The sophisticated poise she'd displayed earlier had evaporated. The spotlight had shifted from her calculated performance to authentic truth. She glanced around desperately seeking something to steady herself, finding nothing. Her carefully constructed facade had crumbled. Our eyes met briefly. I didn't need to challenge or gloat. She looked away first. Marcus finally pierced the silence with an awkward, that was beautiful, my son. The words rang hollow. Even he recognized their emptiness. He seemed diminished somehow, as if witnessing the treasures he'd abandoned. Ethan turned to him with polite acknowledgement. Thank you, before returning to examine the contents of the music box. Natasha cleared her throat. We should leave now, her voice unusually subdued. Marcus nodded, rubbing his neck nervously. Thanks for having us today. I smiled with quiet dignity. You're welcome. They moved toward the exit. Natasha departed without a backward glance. Her reflection caught in the corridor glass revealed downcast eyes and tightened lips. She hadn't been conquered, but she'd been revealed in her true nature. And more significantly, so had I. When the door closed, the gathering collectively breathed again. Conversations resumed. Programs collected. Piano music softly played. Yet something fundamental had shifted. The atmosphere felt clearer, lighter. Ethan sat beside me, treasuring his music box. I'm glad I played that piece for you, he said. So am I. He looked up uncertainly. Was it too much? I embraced him gently. It was perfect. After everyone had gone and evening shadows stretched across the room, I discovered something hidden within the music box, another note, smaller, folded carefully. It read, P.S. I heard what she said about my playing and our life. It wasn't right. I couldn't speak up then, but I promise I'll never let anyone diminish what we've built together. You're my mom. That means everything. I held the note against my heart, sitting in the resonant silence. Natasha arrived intending to belittle my world. Instead, she illuminated for my son why love transcends price tags, and respect isn't measured in volume. She brought cutting words to shame me, but my son brought his music, which spoke truths beyond her comprehension. The auditorium stood empty now, programs neatly stacked, chairs arranged, the lingering scent of piano polish in the air. I gathered remaining sheet music, not really organizing but reflecting. Ethan had fallen asleep with his music box beside him, his first composition clutched like a treasure. I sat at our home piano, rereading his promise to stand against anyone who diminished us. These simple words outweighed all else I'd heard in years. That's when clarity washed over me. I hadn't surrendered anything today. Not my dignity, nor my strength, nor my place in my son's heart. Natasha failed because she fundamentally misunderstood what mattered. She mistook my quiet response for weakness. She interpreted my restraint as fear or resignation. She never grasped that my silence came from security, not submission. I didn't engage her battle because it wasn't mine to fight. I didn't seek validation from those already witnessing our truth. I remained authentic because pretense serves no one. I stepped back so my son's light could shine, and shine it did. That recital, music box, and heartfelt letter revealed our essence, his character, and the meaningful relationship we've nurtured. Marcus walked away, but couldn't claim what truly matters. He took his ambition and status, finding someone to admire his external success. But our connection remained unbroken. My resilience stood firm. Ethan's respect deepened. And Natasha? Her grand entrance became a humbled exit. Not because I diminished her, but because I refused her terms of engagement. This lesson I hope Ethan carries forward: authentic strength needs no fanfare. It speaks when necessary, and sometimes stays beautifully silent. That night, I watched Ethan sleeping peacefully. The music box rested near him like a cherished instrument. His breathing created a gentle rhythm, his expression serene. I lingered in the doorway, reflecting. This day unfolded differently than expected. It transcended being merely a recital. It became testament, proof that our bond remains unshakable despite outside forces. Proof that genuine love needs no elaborate display or audience. And proof that even as others attempt to rewrite your story, those who truly matter already know the authentic melody. Ethan understands this truth, as do I. As I finally retired to bed, bitterness and anger were absent. Instead, I felt profound gratitude, not for maintaining silence, but for choosing not to diminish another to elevate myself. For my son's courage to express truth without seeking permission. And for how love, understated, genuine, handmade love, prevailed. What began as a simple recital revealed perhaps the most valuable lesson of motherhood: victory doesn't always require battle. Sometimes it arrives through the quiet power of love's perfect harmony.